Hey guys, welcome to the Emergence podcast, a podcast that aims to empower fitness professionals through candid conversations about building sustainable minds, bodies, and businesses. I'm your host, Laura Gunder, ex-professional ballet dancer turned classical Pilates instructor based in New York City, sharing my insights from a decades-long journey navigating an industry with no set path to success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hey guys, welcome back to the walk section. I wanted to kind of go over what I chatted about last week with Roxie Jones. She was a past coach of mine and really helped me kind of dial in to nutrition, strength training, and kind of reframing and reshaping how I thought about my own relationship to nutrition and training, and kind of how we really worked on less is more, and how she really helped me think about fitness in a very individual way. I know there's like a lot of trends out there. You should do this, you should do that, you should do X, you should do Y. And I think that we forget that we're all individuals and each body is going to react to different diets, different workout plans, different levels of intensity, depending on your goals, depending on the types of stress you're under. And this episode really reminded me actually why I started Emergence is because I'm really passionate about kind of protecting instructors and helping them kind of create tools and systems to put in place that protect their bodies before, you burn out and overwork yourself and end up with really bad health condition, or your body suffers the consequences of not really listening to it and taking care of it because you're just pushing through and kind of banging out sessions with no strategy and no real thought and respect for your own vessel and body. So some of the main things we discussed in this episode were kind of how we look at fitness as a whole and how it is kind of more than just, obviously we know this, that, what kind of exercise we're doing, but we talked kind of about mindset. We talked around kind of balance of intensity versus kind of rest, and kind of going to one extreme and sort of finding that equilibrium for yourself depending on where you are in your career, in your life. That's going to fluctuate, obviously, to the extreme of which we can put our body under stress. We talked about a little bit about disordered eating and the mindset behind that, overtraining and inflammation, biodata feedback, kind of creating a strategy for your social media, and kind of really being more specific about how you structure your page and making it more engaging for your audience. We talked a little bit about self-image and self-worth, and all of these things kind of play into kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So during our conversation and after working with Roxie, she really reminded me that it's important for us as trainers to really be cognizant of how we're feeling day to day, and to start taking notes about what the training load, what our daily schedule is like, and the intensity of which we're working, how we're fueling our bodies, how much rest we're getting, and how much recovery we need to be our best selves in the gym, in our daily lives, and with our clients. And something that I was researching and think that is really important to cover is this idea of biodata feedback. And I think it's interesting to zoom out and look at it in the lens of the allostatic load model, which is a theoretical framework that describes the cumulative effects of chronic stress on the body. It proposes that repeated exposure to stressors such as work, pressure, relationship conflicts, or financial difficulties leads to a prolonged activation of the body's stress response system. An example to this is trainers who just keep going, pushing. You're go, and you're constantly going. You're not listening to your body. Your sleep is horrible. Your body isn't able to recover from your sessions. You don't have brain fog. Your digestion will be off. Maybe you have hormonal acne. For me, in my example, like my hair was falling out, I wasn't sleeping well, my body was always inflamed and bloated, and I was having a real like hormonal response to prolonged stress. So the allostatic load model is just kind of a way, a framework to help us sort of understand what happens to our body. So it's like stress and wear and tear and the outcomes. Biodata feedback, we can think about it as kind of like signals to our bodies. So it's a way that if we're aware of the feedback our body is giving us, we can prevent long-term stress, the accumulation of long-term stress, and sort of the negative outcomes of that towards our body. So it's essentially just being aware of your body and listening to those cues. If you're not sleeping well, your body's not recovering well, you feel like you are, always sick, maybe your immune system is giving up. And those are all cues to listen to. So getting sick necessarily isn't a bad thing. But if it keeps happening over a prolonged period of time, for instance, that's feedback your body's giving you that maybe you're not sleeping enough, you're not resting enough, perhaps you're not feeling your body correctly, or, these are preventative things. So I think I can look at biodata feedback as a way of prevention and to become sort of have that awareness of what your body needs in that moment. And I think it does get a little complex, obviously, because sometimes we do need to push, and sometimes stress on the body is good. That's how we get stronger. But I think we can separate it from signal versus kind of noise concept, where, signal as if you have, you're like sore for a couple of days, but then you feel like you're getting stronger and stronger. But noise can kind of be like you're always constantly tired, you're not really recovering. It's just kind of this like thing in the background that's kind of just growing louder and louder and louder. And no matter what you do, it's not going away. Whereas signal, if we address it right away or we address it within a week or two, it goes away. So it's just sort of like a reminder, hey, maybe I need to take a day off and sleep. Noise is just something that goes on and on and on. And you're just like, I guess this is just normal. And then something more, extreme happens. So that is something that I really thought about during this episode. And I think Roxie does an amazing job at really stressing the idea of less is more, especially for female instructors. And I'm not telling you that intensity isn't good, but I think you need to be aware that everybody's body is different, and we tend to compare ourselves to other people, and some people can take more intensity than others, and they won't have as much of a reaction on their bodies. And some people teach, more intense kinds of classes. Maybe you're teaching like 5 classes a day, as Roxie's example at Soul Cycle, and 3 or 4 or 5 Soul Cycle classes a day. And that's a lot on somebody's body. So you have to be aware of the intensity of your daily schedule and make sure that you're protecting your body and fueling it, and making sure that you're scheduling in adequate rest and you're being honest with what your body is capable of. And I know it gets a little complicated, obviously, when you are the sole proprietor of yourself and you're constantly supporting yourself. But I think that's where the strategy comes in, which Roxie and I kind of addressed, where we both said, like, in the beginning, it is a hustle, but it's important to zoom out and think 4 to 5 years in advance in this career and think about how can I use my skill sets, how can I upskill to create something that's maybe a little more passive. For instance, Roxie has her online coaching business where she has clients, she'll program from them, meet them once a week, and that's kind of like another stream of income and another sort of offering she can give her clients other than just in-person sessions. So I think it does require us to get a little more creative, upskill, but also think a little more strategically about the longevity of ourselves in this business, and that things are always constantly changing, and it takes creativity and it takes patience, but it also takes strategy. So I think that was something that I found very important. And I think that kind of ties into creating a sense of stability for yourself, not only financially, but psychologically. And that I think goes back to that signal and noise, because then you can be more coherent into really understanding, what's signal, what's noise, because you'll have the free mental space. You're not just in survival mode, but you can be aware of your thoughts, your feelings, your energy levels to be a better instructor, because ultimately that's why we're here. We want to be the best instructors we can be, but not at the expense of ourselves. And it took me a really long time to learn that. I still honestly struggle with it, you know, and I'm not perfect and I fall back into old patterns. But I think that the important thing is I'm getting better at identifying the signal before it becomes noise and before it becomes a bigger issue and before my autoimmune issues come back, and really starting to prioritize myself, because I know that if I am sick, it does nobody any good, because I won't be working. I can't show up for my clients. I can't show up for my business, and I just don't feel the best version of myself. And that's ultimately what this is for, because I really care about the instructor. And I think sometimes we're neglected. And unfortunately, we are the only people who are in charge of taking care of ourselves. So I'm just here to remind you to prioritize yourself, take care of yourself, but not in a selfish way, in a way that gives you the space to be the most, welcoming, warm, present version of yourself, so you can feel that connection with your clients, with your friends, your family, and in a way where you can give, because we really, I feel like, can't give properly if we're not giving to ourselves. So that's what I have for today. Thank you so much for listening. Also, if you do listen to these and have any feedback, I feel like I'm kind of in a bit of a creative funk and kind of figuring out where I want this to go and what you all need and want. So please feel free to reach out to me. I am happy to take any feedback, positive or negative, but I really would just love any information I can, so I can make this better for you guys, because I want it to be the best it can be for everybody. So thanks for listening if you do listen to these, and have a great week. Bye.